The bane of my existence of figuring out what words to use to literally grab people by the lapel and shake them awake, because I was in the purgatory of the mundane for 8 freaking years. I didn't hit rock bottom. And so many of us, especially in the field, line of field that we're in right now, is that we've met so many people that their success, their incredible pivot came from hitting rock bottom. And it comes from because it's like, what else do I have to lose? Now, what about the people that don't hit rock bottom, like myself?
Yes.
I had a husband who loved me. I had a roof over my head. I didn't have to work. All these things that were really, it's the problem of the comfort I was in. The comfort we all feel sometimes can really be soothing in the moment, but when you look at what is it actually doing to your long-term goals and your life, it is absolutely keeping you stuck.
Who are the world's most interesting people? And what fascinating, groundbreaking, incredible things can they teach us? In this new series, I leave our Science of People lab to interview my favorite authors, experts, and celebrities for them to share their best people hacks, social skills, and stories. And let me tell you, they have some juicy tips. This is a new series I'm calling The World's Most Interesting People. Hello, YouTube friends. Today, we're talking about how to be confident with my favorite super confident person, Lisa. Say hi,
Vanessa Van Edwards!
Oh my goodness. First, I had to brag about you, so let me just brag about my friend Lisa. So Lisa Bilyeu, I'm sure you know her, co-founded Quest Nutrition, which grew 57,000% in its first 3 years. 57,000%. Let's have a graphic. That was really cool. She is also the co-founder and president of Impact Theory Studios, a revolutionary digital-first studio that produces wildly entertaining original content focusing on themes of empowerment. Over the course of her career, an incredible career, Lisa has created a slate of content that has been viewed more than 500 million times. That's billion with a B, folks. And she and her husband have built Impact Theory's global audience to more than 7.5 million people. She's the host of the digital series Women of Impact, which I've had the honor and pleasure of being on. She's a good friend. She's the most incredible author with her new book, Radical Confidence. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Vanessa Van Edwards, as I've said, and I even talk about you in the book, I always 3-name you. Always. Even in my contacts on my phone.
I love it. So I love this book. I have so many notes. So friends, I got an early copy of Radical Confidence and I devoured it. So what I want to talk about first is, what is radical confidence?
All right, Vanessa Van Edwards. So the myth that I found is that people look at me and think, oh my God, you're so confident. I want your confidence in order to have the life I want. And the truth is that it is a complete false impression. What they see is that I turn up. What they see is that I show up in front of the camera, that I show up every day. But if only they could hear the crippling voice in my head, they would realize it actually wasn't confidence. What it really is that I have the fear, but I do it anyway. And that is radical confidence.
So this is really important. So right before we hopped on, I said to Lisa, look, my entire goal here is we have people watching and I want to be contagious in a positive way. And so kind of an interesting thing here is, have you found that as you work on your own self-talk, as you conquer through that fear and you're doing it anyway, that it actually creates a little loop where as you start to act confident and speak to yourself in more confident ways, it triggers a loop within yourself? Like, can we be contagious for ourselves?
It does. But what it also does is it reminds me that the thought isn't so bad as I feel it is. So even though it's like, it doesn't always change the voice. It just goes, oh, well, you've been here before. You've heard that mean girl talk to you before. And this is how you did it. To me, it doesn't lessen it. It just allows me to know how to handle it. And that actually is super freaking powerful, because now I can actually use it as a benefit, as a tool to help me move forward instead of having it hold me back.
Okay, so you mentioned something very important in that answer about a mean girl. Now,
yes,
I have an inner mean girl. She's super mean. And reading your book really helped me sort of begin to like listen to her for a second and then be like, no, thank you. So I think that when we talk about being a radically confident woman, how do we be confident as women? I think that there's two aspects to this. One is, yes, those people who might have been mean to us early on in our life. But then second, actually, the one that we deal with every day is ourselves. It's like the mean girl inside of us. Do you think about, like, obviously we talk about this in the book, but how do we think about mean girls today, like as women?
Yeah, it's funny because mean girls in school was always the other person, external, that is bringing it. And it was so petrifying. It was so crippling that it actually would dictate how I'd show up, but in the non-authentic way. So you've got the mean girl that's teased, like I got teased, bullied with my looks. And so what that did is it dictated how I showed up. I wanted to fit in. I didn't want to stand out because the last thing I wanted was to give that mean girl a reason to pick on me even more.
Right.
Now, as I grew up, the mean girl became the person in my head, and she was very cruel, and she wouldn't go away. And so with her, I was like, I tried to shut her down. I tried to quieten her, and I wasn't able to. And at least with a mean girl in school, you at least get to go home and go into your bedroom and close the door.
Right. Yeah.
But you don't have that when it's the voice in your head. And I think that that's why it's become so crippling, because it gets louder and louder as you're feeling worse and worse. So let's say, for instance, you're feeling worse about yourself. So now you want to spend time alone, because many of us do. That voice only gets louder. So it actually can fuel the negativity, not help it. So when I realized I am unable to quieten her, and so many people were then saying, but you should be nice to yourself. So now I'm already battling the negative talk. Now I'm actually fueling the negative talk by telling myself, see, you can't even get me to shut up, and I'm inside your head.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So in those moments, I go to, it's like, what serves you? What goal are you trying to get to? And how do you use the situation you're in to propel you forward? So I found myself in a position where the voice was being extremely negative. And I don't know about your listeners, but right now I want them to think about that moment where they had that voice that was so crippling that it stopped them from moving forward. Now I want them to say, what if that was your biggest cheerleader? What if this critic inside your head was your coach? And so I like to say, what if it was the bitch that turned into your BFF?
I like it.
What could you take and actually listen? Because when we think about the friend, right? Okay, perfect example. Me and you, girl, we're good friends. You send me your book. Yes. And you're like, Lisa, I want your honest opinion. There were parts of it that I was like, this is the best thing in the world. But there were also things where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I actually agree with where you've put it and how you framed it. And actually, you kind of lost me over here. Mm-hmm. As your friend, you rely on me to call you up and give you the honest truth. Yes. Not pat your back and your ego and make you feel amazing. That isn't my job. As your friend, it is, I really want you to do well. I know what your goal is. And I'm here to help you get to your goal. Mm-hmm. So now, if that was the voice in your head that is telling you things that maybe you don't want to hear, but maybe is helping you get to your goal, can you listen and sit down and take it in? And the same with you. You gave me strong feedback. And if I said, all I want to do is feel nice about myself, well, I'm not going to call Vanessa Van Edwards, because Vanessa Van Edwards is going to be honest with me. And she's going to tell me the things that are going to actually help me get to the goal, not stroke my ego. Mm-hmm. The negative voice is your ego. It's protecting you. It's like, don't do that. You're going to embarrass yourself, because it doesn't want to get embarrassed. Mm-hmm. But if it was your friend and now you can listen and it's saying, hey, what you just did was terrible. If you do it again, you're going to be embarrassed. If you can listen to that and find the actual tactical tip that you can take away, it's like, great. What am I actually bad at? And what do I need to do to get better? It now literally becomes your BFF that's got your back, that is helping you get better.
Mm-hmm. So turning that voice into a coach that can serve you, and that is incredibly empowering. I think that is actually an act of confidence, right? So that just that mental exercise, it's an act of confidence to say, here's my voice. I'm going to befriend it. I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to make it work for me. That in itself, that is a tiny, not even tiny, that is a Major act of confidence. I also want to talk about, so in the book, what I really loved is you talk about your story, and your story is so incredible, your journey. I think that a lot of people, when they think about the opposite of confidence, they think of something bad or horrible or a rock bottom. You talk about something different, which is much more pervasive and much more powerful, which is what you call the purgatory of the mundane. I think this is really important for people who are watching, because everyone who's watching this, I know they're high achievers, they're succeeding, and maybe they've hit a rock bottom, but actually I think more of them and more of us can be stuck in the purgatory of the mundane. Can you talk to me about what this is?
Yeah, girl, this is the bane of my existence, of figuring out what words to use to literally grab people by the lapel and shake them awake, because I was in the purgatory of the mundane for 8 freaking years. I didn't hit rock bottom. And so many of us, especially in the field, line of field that we're in right now, is that we've met so many people that their success, their incredible pivot came from hitting rock bottom. And it comes from, because it's like, what else do I have to lose? Now, what about the people that don't hit rock bottom, like myself?
Yes.
I had a husband who loved me. I had a roof over my head. I didn't have to work. All these things that were really, it's the problem of the comfort I was in. The comfort we all feel sometimes can really be soothing in the moment, but when you look at what is it actually doing to your long-term goals and your life, it is absolutely keeping you stuck, because it's not shaking. Yeah, it's purgatory. Thank you. So when I think about my life was mundane enough that I was stuck in purgatory, and how the hell do we get out of it? Because the voice in my head was saying, well, Lisa, who are you to ask for more? You've got a wonderful husband that loves you. You've got a roof over your head. How dare you be ungrateful for asking for more? And that, the biggest lesson that I freaking learned that changed my life was you can be utterly and over the moon, head over heels, freaking in love with some parts of your life and love it and be so happy and grateful. And yet, at the very same time, you can be utterly miserable, utterly feeling hopeless in other areas of your life. And it doesn't mean that one should outweigh the other. Just because I was happy with my relationship, I felt like I couldn't speak up about all the other places I was unhappy. And that kept me there for 8 years.
I think that people who are listening, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge, if you are feeling stuck, burnt out, miserable, hopeless, but you keep telling yourself, well, I'm not at rock bottom. I have a great job or I have a great relationship, but you still feel something is missing. That is a kind of purgatory. You are not alone, and I don't want you to ignore it. So I think that that's also what it takes radical confidence to say, there is something off, and I'm not going to just make do. I'm not going to say, I'm going to let it go. My life's on simmer. I don't love this aspect. I think it takes radical confidence to say, something has to change. I haven't hit rock bottom, but I'm in this purgatory of everything's only okay. I think if everything's only okay, why? Why settle at that? And so what I love about the book is you give us step-by-step ways to get out of just only okay. That even things are only mediocre, only okay, there's ways to change it. So I want to talk
I think, can I actually add one more thing?
Yeah,
I think one of the biggest traps right now in our space is people saying you should definitely, speak gratitude. And so while there's a big part of me that completely understands why we should be grateful for the things in our life, 100%, because we can focus on the things, all the bad things that are happening. So gratitude is amazing. The problem with gratitude, though, is that we keep going to, I should be grateful that I have a roof over my head. But hang on a minute, why on earth should we literally ignore all these other areas of our life because we're grateful in one area? So I actually think it is now becoming a trap to us in holding us there, in feeling like we are ungrateful to ask for anything else.
Oh, wait, pause. We are ungrateful to ask for anything else. The definition of gratitude is not that you don't push. The definition of gratitude is that not that you ask for other things. So that's the big moment, is that you can be grateful, but that doesn't mean you have to settle.
Right.
I love it. Okay, let's talk about quests. So you start this journey, and this was the best part of the book. When you were hustling, I was yes, I love that hustle. So can you tell me about Candy? And you know what story I'm talking about. I texted Lisa and I was like, this candy story is amazing. I find this story so inspiring. And by the way, as you listen to the story, so Lisa's about to tell a really good story. As you listen to the story, I want you to think to yourself, what's my candy? Okay, that's what I want you to be thinking about. Okay, Lisa, go for it.
Oh my God, I love you girls so much. So this was really freaking early on in the days of Quest, like early. I was still shipping bars from my living room floor. It was like I was still helping out my husband. So just to give context, I'd been a stay-at-home wife for 8 years. I'd given up basically my dreams to support my husband, and he was just working every day. We start Quest Nutrition, so I jump in as the good traditional Greek wife. Babe, how can I help out? So I have zero experience. It's like, if you don't mind, just ship a couple of bars from our living room floor. Just a couple. Now, what we didn't anticipate is that we will grow at 57,000%. So what I ended up doing, the first couple of weeks, I'm shipping bars out of my living room floor, and I'm putting them in the mailbox one at a time. But because we were growing so quickly, before I knew it, I'm now lugging big garbage bags full of boxes of bars in their shipping boxes, labeled, and I have to hand them over. Now, no matter how quickly you do it at home, I had my little hand scale that I'm weighing the bars and the boxes and putting the labels on.
I'm like,
no matter how, it was painstaking, girl. Yeah. But you do it in service of the bigger goal. So I do it, I get to the post office, and oh my God, you all know how sometimes slow the post office can be. God bless them, they try their best, but it's not exactly an exciting life to, like, when you go there, everyone's very unhappy and the lines are always out the door. So I started to realize no matter how good I was getting at boxing bars on my living room floor, my day always came to a freaking standstill as I was standing in line at the post office. And so in those moments where it was just getting frustrating because I felt like I was wasting my time, I was just like, there has to be another way. Like, there has to be another way. I cannot keep coming to the post office with big garbage bags every day and waiting in line for an hour. Total waste of my time. Now, completely inexperienced. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was just standing there going, what do people do to, basically not bribe, but sweeten people in order to make them happy? Mm-hmm. So I get in line. I'm like, okay, free Quest bars. Yes, this is going to be amazing. Get to the front of the line. And I'm like, guys, thank you so much. This is about, hours and hours of days and days of being in line. Guys, thank you so much. You're so amazing. You're so sweet. You're so kind. You're always here for me. I'd love to give you some free protein bars as a thank you. Crickets.
No.
Crickets.
This is the best part of the story is like, you're offering this thing free. This should be the thing. No. They were like, thanks for your protein bars.
Yeah, they totally turned up the side of their mouth. Like, what do we want to do with protein bars? Now, of course, that was actually the whole reason why we started, making protein bars in the first place, was they just had a bad rap because it used to be either full of sugar with a bit of protein powder sprinkled on, so you can call it protein powder, protein bar, or it was just absolutely unedible, tasted like garbage, but had a ton of protein in it. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they gave me the look of like, are you joking? Why the hell would I want it? But girl, when you want something bad enough, you find a way. And so because in that moment, it wasn't like I knew things. It wasn't that I had it figured out. But in that moment, the fact that I got a no was like, well, what the hell do I do now? I still don't want to stand in line. So it starts to make you think outside the box. It's like, all right, well, you got rejected, but what else can I do? What was the reason I got a no? The reason why I got a no is it had a bad rap. Well, what doesn't have a bad rap? Candy. So I go, okay, let me go to Costco and buy some candy. So I go to Costco, I buy one of those big bags of candy. I stand back in line the next day and I'm like, all right, let's see if this works. Because remember, when you're driven enough to get a yes, you keep finding ways. And so it wasn't like I had the confidence. It wasn't like I knew what I was doing. I just knew ahead of me, I had a goal. I had to think something I needed to achieve. And I was going to see and try and test things to see what I could get, how I could get a yes. Yeah. So I stand back in line. I get to the front. I'm like, all right, guys, poof, big bag of candy on the desk. And I'm like, thank you so much. And they lit up. They were so freaking happy. Like, yes, heaven opens up. Oh. And so every so often, I just kept taking them candy because I was like, you know what? It makes them happy. And if I can just bring some joy to their day, let me just keep bringing some candy every so often. Turns out one day I'm standing in line and I hear rustling, I hear yelling, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, there's so many people yelling. And I'm like, what is going on? I look up and it's the woman going, candy lady. Literally, she's screaming at me. I'm at the back of the line and she's like, candy lady, come to the front. Everyone's like looking at me. And you know that I'm totally insecure at this point. I am like, oh God, like, can I cut? Am I cutting in line? Am I cutting in line? And you know that voice that you repeat in your head just to get to the front of the line, or you're just coaching yourself through it. It's like, you're not cutting in line, Lisa. You're not cutting in line.
You got it.
Yeah. You can do it. You got this.
Yeah.
So I get to the front and they're like, you don't have to stand in line, candy lady. They take my bag of shipping and I was in and out of the post office in like 3 freaking minutes. So from that day forward, I was known as the candy lady. And I realized that no matter what, if you are trying to get to a yes, you have to keep trying and you have to think outside the box, and you can't take no as a permanent no. And that was a massive lesson for me that I learned.
Okay, so I think we're expanding the definition of confidence, right? It's never taking no for an answer. It's thinking creatively. It's saying, I'm going to keep trying every which way. It's also, by the way, I think the moment of confidence in that story is the moment you stood in line and you were like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Like that takes confidence. And so there's 2 questions I want you to think about for yourself watching this is not only what's your candy, what's their way in, right? Is there a new way in, but also what line are you standing in? You need to get out of, right? Like, what line are you in that's mediocre and mundane that you're like, I don't want to stand in this line anymore? And then what's your candy or what's your experiment? The other story that I absolutely love, so you're going to have to take us on a little journey. So you start Quest, you're helping your husband, you're like, sure, I'm going to box bars in my living room. Incredibly quickly, Quest starts to grow. It's growing tremendously. You are now in your first warehouse, which you've never done before. And there was a story that came that I just love, which is about making mistakes. And I don't want to give away the punchline, but when there was do you remember the story about when there was a mistake that was made and it created something? I do. You tell us that story. I read the story to my husband. I was like, you're not going to believe this. Yes, tell us the story.
That's amazing. So I love that. And that's the thing. I so tie things to storytelling because many times, even when mistakes happen now, even when failures happen, it still stings and it still really bums me out. And so I don't want anyone to ever think like you make a mistake, you learn from it, and then you're good to go. I use this story as my go-to every time I make a mistake and fail, because if I allow the internal dialogue to start going crazy, where it's like, see, I told you you made a mistake, I told you were going to fail, I wouldn't move forward. And so because I'm so goal-oriented, how do I keep moving forward? What tools do I use to keep pushing me forward, even when I feel like I don't feel capable? And so this is one of those stories that I will keep repeating until my dying day, because it is the most incredible reminder of a failure can be so impressively, a failure can be the best life lesson. And so I know that people may go, yeah, it's easy for you to say. No, it still freaking stings. It still stings then. So here we go. Here's the story. So it's early days of Quest again. We've now got a facility, we're manufacturing, but we've only got enough money to hire 3 other people to manufacture the bars. So there's a couple of us in the offices, and every freaking penny counts. Like when you're doing a startup, I would budget the pens for the office. That's how much you have to make sure that you're spending your money wisely. So we're sitting in the office, and all of a sudden, one of our guys from the production facility comes in, and he looks ghost white. And he's like stuttering, and we're like, what the hell is going on? And he's like, I'm so sorry. And we're like, what's wrong? And he's like, I've just messed up a batch. Now, a batch of bars at the time cost $5,000. In a startup, oh my God, $5,000 can be your entire marketing budget for the year.
Yeah.
So it can make or break. So in that moment, I'm like, oh God, are we done for? So my husband, he was like, no, let's just see what we got. Like before we freak out, so that was one great lesson. Before you freak out, just assess the situation. So We went in. I'm internally freaking out, but I'm like, okay, it's this situation. It's this situation. We go in, and there's literally these big tubs full of just like what we called the matrix. So basically the bars kind of clumped together in these big containers. And then we're like, what happened? And the guy takes a deep breath and he's like, all right. He's like, I was making a peanut butter batch and I have all the flavors lined up in order. And so I was doing peanut butter first. I put in the peanut butter flour, the peanut butter protein powder, the sweeteners, and then the mixed berry flavor bar. We put the flavor in by accident. So he took the flavor from the next batch, which was going to be our mixed berry, and accidentally put it in the peanut butter. And so he's like, I'm so sorry. So Tom's like, let's just try it. So we're all sitting there, we're holding our breath, you know, when you really don't want to do something, but it's like the sake of a startup, you're like, okay, I'm going to do it for the team.
Yeah.
So you hold your breath and we all take a bite. And then someone says, you know what? It kind of tastes like PB&J. And light bulb idea. All right, right. In this moment, yeah. In this moment where we literally think we're about to lose $5,000 and we have this idea, all right, if it tastes like PB&J, what if we wrap it in completely plain wrappers? We print out the nutritional value from the peanut butter bar because you can't legally sell food without nutritional value, but because the only difference was the flavoring, the nutritional value was the same. So literally on my Staples printer, we're like rapidly printing out nutrition labels. We're like folding them up, putting them in boxes, and we blast out on Facebook because this was the early days. It was when Facebook was like the strategy. So we blast out on Facebook, limited edition, 200 boxes only, prototype. Come and get them while they last. And girl, we sold out in like 2 hours, 200 boxes. And then what happened was, because everyone was like prototype limited edition, when people started receiving the bars, they started posting about how amazing it was and how it was their favorite flavor. So all the people that ended up not actually tasting them started getting immense FOMO. So they started going, we want to try it. We want to try it. So before we knew it, within a month, we did wrapper designs, we did wrapper boxes, we put them up on official sale that we had a new bar called the peanut butter and jelly bar, and it became our #1 protein bar on the market at the time.
I like get the chills when I hear this story, and I have told this story. So I just want to take a moment here, and like, there are so many times when we make a mistake that we think is a mistake, but actually every mistake is an opportunity. And maybe you're not going to get a #1 best-selling protein bar from it, but there is an opportunity for learning, for growth, for exploration, and maybe, just maybe, it could lead to your next success. And that's what I love about this story. I also think that that radically confident moment that happened a couple times when, one, he came and told you the mistake. Thank goodness he came and told you the mistake. 2, you were willing to try it. And 3, you were like, it could have stopped, by the way. This story could have stopped at any point. It could have stopped when that person said, hey, kind of tastes like peanut butter and jelly. You could have been like, yeah, too bad. But no, we're like, no, we're going to actually go we're going to take that comment, we're going to run with it. We're going to explore. So the other aspect here is, are you willing to milk your mistakes? Right? Like,
yes.
Are you willing to like go the extra mile and try and experiment and play?
And think outside the box, to your point, right? Because if you just take the problem for face value, you may not be able to see how that can serve you. But if you flip the mindset of, okay, if this was an opportunity, how could it be? Then when you come up with the idea, well, what if it was a PB&J bar and someone said, oh, well, Shane, we couldn't do it. Ask why. Like, why is that not possible? Because that's the thing. You know how many freaking times the amount of people that told me something wasn't possible? And if I just kept saying why? But what about this?
Why?
But why? It ends up coming, well, you could, I guess, do it. And now you've taken impossible into a possibility. The second you go from impossible to a possibility, now it just makes you take action on seeing, well, if it's a possibility, can it actually come into fruition? Versus not taking that first step in the freaking first place. And so many of us, including myself, stopped in the past at that moment of, well, it's impossible, well, it's a failure.
Yeah. So I want to end the video with just a final idea, which is, so first of all, everyone who's watching, I think that not only does Lisa give so many practical tips, so every story has a practical takeaway at the end, but also it's a wonderful manifesto and a way to read someone's journey all the way through with incredible success. So I want people to buy the book. I want them to get the actual framework with all the tips and all the stories. I was so inspired as I was reading it. Like I was reading it and I was like, I've got to do things. I've got to try things, which it's so rare to find something that actually gifts confidence, actually gifts energy and excitement. One final thing, if you had to leave our listeners, our viewers with one final kind of tip for themselves, what could they do today, even right now, that can help them feel that energy?
It's a good question. And you know what's interesting? The first thing I wanted to say is go buy Captivate.
Oh my. No, you're not allowed.
I know. And Vanessa's going to tell me right now, Lisa, that's a terrible thing to say in your book promotion. But here's the thing, and this is why I actually wanted to say it. And I know you're going to say that's a terrible strategy. So the thing that I write in the book is, guys, just admit you're scared. It's fine. You know how many times I was petrified, but I didn't let it stop me. And then people say, but how do you not let it stop me? And so I very much talk about your book in my book, because you were the most beautiful tool for me to get out of my own way. And so there's a massive difference between saying, you don't have to have the confidence, but you can do it anyway, and actually doing it. Mm-hmm. Like there's such a massive difference. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I want to have in this book, and that you do so beautifully, girl, in your books, is it gives you ways to get out of your own head.
There you go. Yeah.
I can follow a blueprint even when I'm insecure. But if I don't have a blueprint and I'm insecure, I won't do anything.
Right. I think that I could take an action step here. Please buy Captivate, please buy Radical Confidence. But my action step would actually is to think of where you need the help. So if there's an area where you feel stuck, or you feel you're in Mundane, or you feel like you're stuck in a line, start there. Because if you just realize where you're stuck, it's easier to look for blueprints to help. Right? Then you're reading a book, you're reading the book thinking, I want to get out of X line. I got to get out of X purgatory. And so I want you to think about where are you stuck so that you can begin to look for the tools, the blueprints, the people, the role models, the tips, the strategies to help get you out of it. Because remember, it is not ungrateful to want change. You can still be grateful and want to change your life and change your behavior. That is why I love your book so much, is because you're telling people they deserve change. They can change, and you give them tools to actually help them change. I am so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for our friendship. I'm so grateful for this book. I cannot wait for people to get it in their hands. I cherish my copy. I can't wait to get the real copy. We're having this interview a little early. I want the real copy. This is the pre-copy. I want to thank everyone for listening. In the comment below, put your action step, put your next step. I'd love to see it so we can give it a little like and a reply. Lisa, thank you, my friend, for being on.
Thank you, girl. And I just want to take 5 seconds and say you have been the most incredible freaking support system. And, you know, I even talk about this in the book. It's like there's one thing to look around and see who shows up for you when things are great. But loyalty only really counts when times are hard. Loyalty and friendship only counts when you really need someone and you see how people show up. And girl, behind the scenes, you have shown up for me in so many ways possible. I cannot thank you enough for your friendship and for giving me radical confidence to do these interviews and show up every freaking day.
Oh man, those are my pleasure. I like doing those things, so I love it. Well, you're going to be seeing a lot more from Lisa and I, so get ready for more exciting things. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to get radically confident. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Don't forget to check out all of these goodies.